But unlike during Apollo, this time, our efforts will not rely entirely on government action. Instead, we will go forward into that bright future with the strong support of our private partners and international allies. Already, NASA is working with industry leaders to develop plans for the Lunar Gateway, a critical outpost and refueling station that will help us develop the technologies, test the systems, and train the astronauts for the first ever crewed journey to Mars. Our Moon to Mars mission is on track, and America is leading in human space exploration again. Don't you doubt it. As we'll also talk about today, under the President's leadership, we've also unleashed America's commercial space industry as never before. As the President said memorably not long ago, rich guys love rockets. And we've taken steps to make it possible for American entrepreneurs to invest and to help America develop the technologies that will carry American leadership into space. As Secretary Ross will no doubt reflect again today, we're streamlining the licensing regimes that oversee launch, re-entry, and new operations in space. We're removing unnecessary regulations that have increased cost and stifled innovation. All of that's happened over the last 2.5 years. We've encouraged a more stable and orderly space environment by developing the world's first comprehensive space traffic management policy. And as we've restored confidence in the opportunities of space, we've helped drive incredible economic growth. Just 2 years ago, the satellite industry alone generated some $350 billion in revenue. And studies predict that number will increase to more than $1 trillion annually in the next 2 decades. And more than ever, space is recognized as the industry of the future. In the first half of this year, we've seen almost as much invested in space companies as we did in the entire year before. In fact, in the last decade, more than $22 billion has been invested in nearly 500 different space companies. And I'm proud to say that the majority of those investments have been made in American space businesses. America is leading in public and private investment in space. But as we all know, as we lead in human space exploration, as we lead in American innovation and entrepreneurship in space, we also must lead in security. And for the sake of our security, both here on Earth and in the heavens above, at President Trump's direction, we are working with Congress as we speak to stand up a new branch of our armed forces. And soon Congress will approve and the President will sign the 6th branch of the Armed Forces of the United States Space Force. As the President has said, we all recognize, it's been frankly true for decades, in his words, space is a war-fighting domain. The United States Space Force will ensure that our nation is prepared to defend our people, to defend our interests, and defend our values in the vast expanse of space and here on the Earth with the technologies that will support our common defense from the vast reaches of outer space. Next week, we will formally stand up the new Unified Combatant Command. It will be known as the United States Space Command, and I'm pleased to announce that we will recognize its new leader. 4-star Air Force General John Raymond will be the first leader of the United States Space Command. Thank you, General. And before I move on from General Raymond, let me mention another general who's here with us today. General Joe Dunford is Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He has served this nation throughout his long career in uniform with extraordinary distinction. He has played a critical role in ensuring the national defense of the United States, and he will be concluding his duties as Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the months ahead. And would you all mind getting on your feet and just showing how much we appreciate the extraordinary life and career and leadership of General Joe Dunford. Thank you, General. Thank you for your service, and thank you for your leadership, particularly on the matters pertaining American leadership in space. It is a historic contribution, and I know the President feels as I do that we would not be at this historic moment without your leadership and your support. Later this morning, we're going to hear more about our administration's progress toward a new unified defense agreement to defend America's national security space assets and also ensure our collective defense. But for all that we've accomplished, the greatest triumphs of American leadership in space still lie ahead, and you'll hear about those plans today. The National Space Council today will send new policy recommendations to the President that will help drive even greater cooperation between our government, our commercial partners, and like-minded nations across the world, nations that share our values of democracy, freedom, and the rule of law. We will build on the success of the International Space Station by working with our friends and allies to support a moon landing in 2024, to develop sustainable long-term lunar surface operations, and to build the spacecraft that will carry us to Mars. We'll also continue to unleash the creative powers of America's commercial space enterprise. This council will recommend today steps that will encourage innovation and ensure that American companies have the level playing field they need to compete and win in space. And we'll continue to transform NASA into a leaner, more accountable, and more agile organization. Isn't that right, Jim? Yes, sir. Yeah, good. We're going to make it easier than ever to recruit and retain the world's brightest scientists, engineers, and managers, and we're going to hit our goals, and we're going to make new American history in space. You know, President Trump tasked the National Space Council with reigniting and reinvigorating the American space program, and I'm humbled and proud at the same time to say that's exactly what this team has done. And that's what we're going to continue to do with the support of so many of you gathered here today. As President Trump said, in his words, it is America's destiny to be the leader amongst nations on our adventure into the great unknown. And that's why the National Space Council was reconstituted, and that's what brought us here today. And while the tasks before us involve hardship and hazard, sacrifice and perseverance, we know what the men and women of Apollo 11 knew 50 years ago, and that is simply this, that Americans can accomplish anything we set our minds to, and America will lead the world back into the vast expanse of space. So thank you all for being here today. We're grateful to the members of the National Space Council, our advisory group, all the experts and industry leaders who are joining us here today. And I look very much forward to our dialogue and our discussion and the support that I see in this room, the support that I hear from not only people involved in the great space enterprise across this country, but from everyday Americans from every walk of life convinces me that we have only just begun to renew American leadership in space. So thank you all. Thank you all for your support. Thank you for your presence here today. Let's get to work.